get it all messed up. Okay. Well, the fly we're tying today is called the Crystal Minnow. And this is not one that's original with me, even though I have done some modifications to it. I always like to give credit where credit's due. This particular fly was started by Don Matthews with Da Fish and Fool over near Cleveland. And when he tied this, he tied it on a number 8 3X streamer hook. I'm just using a number 6 Diachi 2220. He also used beadhead eyes, and that is something that I will talk about in here a little bit. I use the barbell eyes. I will sometimes use the beadhead eyes when I am fishing like a tail out. I have used this. I probably caught more steelhead on this fly than any other that I've used. I have been out with low water conditions and used the beadhead, a little bit heavier water, fishing the bucket of a hole with the barbell eyes. Sometimes, depending on where the fish are laying in the hole, I have straight armed my rod and just skittered this with the beadhead eyes in a tail out and watch them come up like Shamu at SeaWorld and just grab it. Okay, it's a very effective fly. So what I start off with is I take my hook, which I should have had ready for me. There it is. And you got that there, Ben? Am I in frame well? Okay, that'll give you a little better of a background, I think. There you go. Okay, with the correct glasses on so I can see. Where I start, of course, I start laying down my thread base. And when I'm laying the thread base, I don't know if I showed you guys this trick or not before. What I do is I hold that tag end and I slide my thread down that tag, and it just goes nice, lay by lay, all threads touching. And of course we know that this will help keep your material from sliding around, but on this particular fly it also lays a nice, actually part of the body, as I'll show you here in a minute. So I get that back there to about where the barb is. We're going to pinch that barb later. So then I bring my thread back up, and I'm going to tie in my barbell eye. So I get it out of the bag. There we go. I only need one. Now, where do you place this? Now, I've always been one that likes to use use the tools that I have to kind of measure off where things go. So I'm going to take my scissors, and about halfway up the blade, that is where that barbell eye is going to sit. You also notice I kind of by habit just stop my thread there. And the reason that I do that is you'll have a nice measurement there. One of the biggest problems we have in tying is that we will usually end up crowding the eye when we're tying, and we're at the very end, everything else looks good, and we got this big old ball of glop covering up the eye, and trying to get it tied on at 7 o'clock in the morning on a rainy day with rain down your neck, and you're wondering why you can't get your leader through the eye. That's oftentimes why. So I use that to measure off about where I want that. That'll give us room for a nice head. Now, so I'm going to place the eye there. Now I have a little bit of a ball right here. I'm going to sit that eye on. I'm going to go around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to turn this just so they can see how that is. See how it's kind of cockeyed like that? I've gone the one way. Now I'm going to straighten that out on top of the hook, and I'm going to go the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Straightens out just nicely. And I'll go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And now what I'll do is I will go around like this here. Am I catching that, Ben?
Almost parachuting.
Almost parachuting it. And what that does is that takes the tying that you've done there, and it locks those threads down and really puts a clamp on them. Okay. Now, nonetheless, that's going to want to spin. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back up the front. And at this point, I'm going to put a whip finish on it. I like to get a couple of these together before I'm actually tying. Okay, we'll put a whip finish on that, lock it up. I'm going to nip that. And now I'm going to take a little bit of Zap-A-Gap. You can use some super glue, you can use UV stuff. I'm going to put a drop of Zap-A-Gap right there. Remember, guys, this is super glue. And trust me, you will walk around for 2 days with this thing on your thumb if you're not careful. Somebody asked me how I know that. No, don't ask me how I know that. Okay. Now, that needs a little bit of time to dry. So like I said, I always try to have a couple of these ahead of time. So I already have one ahead of time. Okay. And actually dried. So this is almost dried. Wow, that was close. Okay. So now with this barbell eye, remember that your fly is going to be swimming like this. Okay, your hook is going to be up. That's one of the nice things, you know, you're ticking bottom, working the bottom, working some of those rocks around the tail out. You're not going to have as much of a chance, if you're careful, still be careful of snagging up. But what we're actually doing is we're tying the bottom of the fly on first. Now the first piece of material is going to be craft fur. And I have used several different things for this fly. I have used fin raccoon, but have a little problem with the fins trying to keep all their raccoons right now. I've used fin raccoon. I have used Arctic goat. I have used Arctic foxtail. I prefer Arctic foxtail for this, not just Arctic fox, because you have the longer strands. So I'm going to take, about a half a pencil's width of that, maybe just a little bit more. How am I going to measure that? I'm going to measure that by the width of my scissors handle. Okay, it's just things to keep in mind. Now with any fur, whether it's craft fur or if it's regular fur, always make sure you trim that right up next to the thread. And I won't want the bulk of this. You still got, imagine that. They do synthetic fur and they build in duff. So you're going to want the bulk of this. You're going to want to have the tail about the length of the shank of the hook. But notice how that's all uneven there? That's okay. Nice thing about craft fur is just do that. Okay? So I'm going to measure with my fingers here, length of the shank. I'm going to go back. Okay? But the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I get my thread on here. That'd probably be a good idea, huh? So I have something to tie to. We'll get up there. There we go. Get you started there. Now, again, as I was saying, okay, you're going to measure off like that, okay? And you're going to move that back there. That's going to be the length of your fly. Now, you're going to lay this right between the eyes. You're going to put one loop here just to lock it down, and up, and up. And I'm going to go under, and I'm going to go, like here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now, watch what I do here. I'm going to make these wide loops, wide wraps, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to back that barb, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to bring it back around, and I should be forming, well, you rod wrappers, you're going to say, hey, what's he doing? Is that X pattern there? Does it show up over there? Yeah, kind of. Well, I'm going to do that again. Okay. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, and see how that is kind of checkered like? See that, Ben? Okay. And we'll go 1, 2, 3. And we'll come back underneath. Now, notice how this has stayed up nice for me. Okay. We'll give a couple wraps here, maybe 3, 2, 3. And now when you trim this, one of the problems we always have with streamers is you end up with this big old bull nose because you have your bucktail on top of your bucktail, your material on top of your material. All you have to do really is go ahead and trim that at about the angle that you're going to you want that head to be, like that. Okay. So now when you're locking this down, it starts to form that nice cone head. Okay, just like that. And I like to get that tied down some just so I don't have so much hair and everything flying around. Okay. Now, here's where we're going to start the crystal flash and the top wing. Now, normally I would just do this here, but I have trouble with this like this. So I'm just going to actually take it out of my device and do that. That keeps stuff out of the way for me. Okay. At this point, I'm also, because good things happen to bad people, I'm going to put one of those. I'm going to just put another whip finish here, just so that if this breaks, which it has in the past, I don't lose all my tying. Okay, there you go. Now next comes your crystal flash. This is the flash part. And just take enough here, about like that, probably about 8 fibers. And what I like to do with this, I'm going to have some hanging out, I'll have to trim it, of course, that's fine, is I take and I fold this in half around my thread, like that, okay? And then I just draw it down like that. You saw how I did that? 3, 4, and then I'm able to split it right there, like that. Tied down. And then your top wing, of course, is going to be the olive, in this case, craft fur. You might want to go just maybe a little bit heavier, maybe about the same as far as how much you're using. If you look at an emerald shiner, you'll see that the top of the minnow, the dark spots, there's a little more dark than there is light, but they're also swimming along at 100 mile an hour. I'm yet to see a steelhead stop and say, wait a second, he's a half a millimeter too long on that. Remember, steelhead are not smart fish. They eat yarn. Okay. Get the duff out. Pull off the long stuff there. And just lay that, again, length the shank's about where you're going to be. Lay that right as it were between the eyes. Loop, lift, loop, lift, loop, lift. And again, and go ahead and trim that at an angle, just like that. Okay. And again, that helps to prevent that bull nose, even though you'll probably end up with one kind of like I just did just now. And then you form up your head. Do your whip finish. Now, a little trick you can do with a whip finish, if you're going to use your head cement, you can try that again with a ball that actually has some in it. Okay, I'm 2 for 2 here. There we go. There we go. Put your head cement on here. There you go. So that first knot is locked down pretty well. And just using the Loon head cement here, I have used good old Sally Hansen's. You can get that at Walmart. I often put a black head on these when I'm tying them. And that right there is how it's going to swim. Just like that. There's your crystal minnow. Just like that. How's that look? Focus there?
Yummy.
Yummy? Okay. Now, like I said, you can tie these with bead head eyes. I'll be giving out the barbell eyes. If you want to try the bead head, I have some beads, and we'll get your material passed out. Okay.